AEW Collision was announced, it was said that Tony Khan would be implementing a roster split, dividing talent between Collision and Dynamite. To be more specific, the plan was to divide talent into those willing to work with CM Punk and those who aren't, but a lot has changed since those initial reports. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful reports that AEW is still going back and forth about a potential roster split, but it's not going to be happening as of now. When talks backstage first started over a split, it was said that special exceptions would be made, especially for champions, and the idea of a split was met with mixed reactions internally. Talent were unhappy with the idea of only competing on Saturdays, meaning they'd have to miss out on weekend-based conventions, which are often serious money earners for talent in the company. While there were plans for a hard split in the roster, some were told there would be a softer split, before being told that there would be natural sharing between Collision and Dynamite's rosters. Warner Bros. Discovery have said that they prefer no split at all, but believe it could work under the right circumstances, and AEW filed a trademark for the term transfer portal as well. AEW is making huge efforts to allow CM Punk to return, including splitting the roster. And do you think it's a good idea, or is this too much effort just for the self-proclaimed best in the world? On the premiere episode of AEW Collision, CM Punk made his return to programming, and though he took a dig at the Young Bucks, neither the brothers nor Kenny Omega appeared. That wasn't all that much a surprise, as it's well known that AEW will keep the Elite and Punk separate, but it's not just Collision which will be affected by this rule. Fightful Select reports the Elite could very much miss this week's episode of AEW Dynamite, which, like Collision, will also take place in Punk's hometown of Chicago, Illinois. In fact, the Elite may be kept off all Chicago events for the foreseeable future, with the belief in AEW that the pro-Punk crowd will only make things difficult for the former AEW Trios champions. Fightful is told that the Elite have pre-taped some segments for this week's Dynamite, but there's a good chance they're not in the arena, which means Punk could show up. Sources close to Punk told Fightful that he has been planned for the June 21st episode of Dynamite, which would be his first since August 31st of last year, but AEW have not confirmed the news. Punk and the Elite have unresolved issues, which has led to the two sides being kept far apart, but as long as Punk has the home field advantage, don't expect Omega or the Young Bucks in Chicago. Last week, it was reported that Carlito has signed a new contract with WWE following his well-received return at Backlash earlier this year. Unsurprisingly, WWE has not publicly confirmed whether Carlito has signed a new deal, as they rarely publicly comment on matters like this, but now the man himself has weighed in. At a House of Glory show this week, Carlito cut a promo after his match and told the fans in attendance that the rumors are true. While Carlito joked that the rumors he was referring to was that he taught El Hijo del Vikingo all his moves, it's clear what he was actually referring to in the latest sign that he is WWE bound. While Carlito appeared at this event, he has been informing promoters for upcoming shows that he is no longer able to appear, citing a contract he was recently signed that he would be in violation of. Whether Carlito is working in the ring for WWE or just on a backstage role, time will tell, but right now, the former US champion is having a lot of fun with the rumors of his return. More from CM Punk now, as the former world champion is back on AEW TV and has returned with a new piece of merchandise. For Collision, Punk donned his new Larry shirt, featuring the face of his dog who was present at the all-out backstage fight, and Larry's other owner is loving what she's seeing. On Instagram, AJ Mendez, Punk's wife, shared a still image of her husband in the show and declared that the Larry merch is absolutely killing her. Later on, AJ shared another image from Collision, this one featuring banners of Larry outside the United Center in Chicago, and wondered whether Larry even knew how fancy he is right now. It's interesting that AEW are allowing this merch given Larry's connection to what happened at All Out, though you'd need Dr. Dolittle to find out what Larry feels about the events of last September. This shirt is certainly gaining traction, but what do you make of the Larry shirt, and will it be something you'll be picking up from AEW's merchandise stand? Let us know in the comments. With all the talk of AEW Collision, it could be easy to forget that there was an AEW Rampage last Friday, and that show didn't go as planned for one member of the roster. During Rampage, Bandido faced Konosuke Takeshita in a hard-hitting match, a match that proved to be a bit too hard-hitting in retrospect. On Facebook, Bandido revealed that he suffered a triangular fibrocartilage complex injury during the match with Takeshita, or in layman's terms, a severe broken wrist. The injury may require surgery to correct, though Bandido said he plans to seek a second opinion at some point today before he determines the next course of action. If Bandido can avoid surgery, then it'll be weeks before he is back to 100%, while the surgery will take months. But right now, the talented wrestler should be picking the option that is best for his long-term health. Bandido has been able to share the ring with some top names since coming to AEW, including Chris Jericho and Bryan Danielson, and we're wishing him all the best as he deals with this injury. Now, Rhea Ripley is proving to be a force to be reckoned with on Monday Night Raw, and has proven to be a dominant champion since WrestleMania 39. The new WWE Women's World Champion has retained against Zelina Vega and Natalya at premium live events, as well as Shotzi and Tegan Nox at live events, and despite being a heel, has a lot of support. In footage shared online, Ripley can be seen leaving a WWE event and heading to her vehicle, while the fans chanted "You deserve it" in recognition of the Eradicator's success. Ripley even gave the fans a little dance to show she heard them loud and clear before starting to load her luggage in the car that was waiting for her. It's unclear what WWE has planned for Ripley at Money in the Bank, though we know that on tonight's Raw, she'll be facing Natalya, who hasn't been the same since being squashed at Night of Champions. Whether Natalya can get a win over the Women's World Champion, we'll have to wait and see, but it's clear that Ripley has the support of fans despite her association with the Judgment Day. Ahead of this year's WWE draft, many names from NXT were expected to be called up, and Braun Breaker was perhaps the biggest name on the list. Ever since his 2021 debut, it has been reported that WWE have planned for him to be fast-tracked to the main roster, which is why it's so surprising that he wasn't picked by either Raw or SmackDown. Speaking with the Cheap Heat podcast, Braun discussed his current heel role in NXT and isn't worried about making the move just yet. He said, "There was no disappointment or anything. Me being a heel now is the best thing that I've done. I'm having so much fun, it's more natural for me. This is just a much better version of me. I'm having the time of my life right now. I'm not worried about whether I'm going up, I'm getting drafted. That's just not something I worry about or think about. When my time comes, it'll come." Breaker has a bright future ahead of him on the main roster, but the important word there is future. And what would you like to see Breaker do when the move eventually happens? Now, yesterday was Father's Day, and although many WWE superstars are proud papas, Rey Mysterio probably didn't receive a card from his son Dominik. On Saturday, Rey challenged undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns in a rare live event appearance from the Tribal Chief, and Dominik decided to get involved. Just as it looked like Reigns was beat thanks to a frog splash, the referee's count was interrupted by Dominik, and Rey wasted no time in disciplining his son. After hitting a dive to Dominik on the outside, Rey returned to the ring to take a spear from Reigns, who got the win, but it was Rey who'd get some retribution the following night. The next day, Rey faced Dominik in a Father's Day street fight and took vengeance on his son, including giving Dominik a spanking just like at WrestleMania 39. Rey was able to get the win over Dominik in some sweet retribution for the Hall of Famer on a Father's Day that no one in the Mysterio family will ever forget. On this week's Raw, Cody Rhodes will appear and continue his feud with Dominik Mysterio, which will culminate with the two facing off at WWE's Money in the Bank. Between the Mysterio feud and wanting another shot at Brock Lesnar, Cody has plenty of opponents in WWE already, and he'll face even more names on tonight's episode of The Red Brand. BWE reports that the American Nightmare will be part of a 6-man tag team match on tonight's Raw, and we'll have to see which side emerges victorious and builds momentum to Money in the Bank. Now, WWE fans haven't seen Drew McIntyre on TV in months, but the former world champion is being kept plenty busy in Berlin, Germany. In addition to being a superstar, McIntyre is a Special Olympics global ambassador, and this week, McIntyre has been representing WWE at the latest event, featuring thousands of athletes. Judging by the photos and videos, McIntyre is clearly having a blast in Berlin, but will this resurfacing lead to him returning to WWE TV? Only time will tell. And we're ending today with AEW Collision, as Jim Ross called the show's main event alongside Kevin Kelly and Nigel McGuinness, but the legendary announcer didn't sound like his usual self. Mere hours before the event, JR took a nasty fall, which resulted in a severe shiner, and on Twitter, Ross apologized for his performance on Collision. JR added that he's going to step away from the announce table to heal up, and received a lot of supportive responses, and we're wishing good old JR all the best as he recovers from what happened.